What we know as psychologists about behavior change is that it's not only about willpower and self-control. Sometimes designing your environment beats discipline.
When we make things easier for ourselves, they're more likely to happen.
Yeah, let's not wait to feel like changing or feel like changing and enact that change, but let's actually just make the change easier to do and figure out how to do that and help our teens do that too. Welcome back to the Parenting Pair podcast. I'm Dr. Annalise Karen.
And I'm Dr. Suzanne Allen.
And today, we are going to jump into the question, why do we keep doing the things that we know are unhelpful and yet keep doing them? And what we should do about it, right? So I was thinking about this on the drive over here today, and so I thought about something we might be doing that's unhelpful. We're asking you to rate and review our podcast at the end. Does that make sense? Because what if you're busy? What if you have to jump off the podcast and then you don't get the opportunity to hear us? Ask if you would be willing to rate, follow, review the podcast. So I'm going to do it differently today. See, old habits die hard, and I'm changing. So if you have a moment, could you, on whatever you're listening on, give us a rating, give us a review, because it just helps get the podcast out to more people. All right,
let's get started.
So why is it that you tell yourself you're going to stop scrolling before bed over and over again, and then you keep scrolling before bed, right? Or you say, I'm going to start working out, and you say it to yourself for 4 months, I'm going to start tomorrow morning, and then we don't do it, right?
Or for our teenager, that they say, I'm going to come home from school and take a 20-minute break and then start my homework, and every night at 9 o'clock, they're scrambling because they took a 2-hour nap and they haven't gotten anything begun.
Right. I think what people jump to is that someone doesn't have enough willpower. Someone isn't, organized enough or doesn't have enough self-control. There's some sort of,
character deficit or something like that. Or sometimes I've had teens say, like, maybe I just don't care enough. I mean, I think I care, but I guess I don't because I'm not doing anything to change it.
Right. And what we know as psychologists about behavior change, because that's really a lot of what we're in the business in helping people figure out how to change their behavior in ways that they want to improve their mood or improve their life or improve their sense of self or understanding of themselves. What we know about that is that it's not only about willpower and self-control, right? Sometimes it's about the environment that you're in. And we can do things to set ourselves up for greater success in our environments. And that's what really today's, episode is about. Right.
And that sometimes you enact the behavior change. If you do something different or you set up the environment to make it easier for you to do something different, that your mood and energy kind of changes after that. And so a lot of times, and listen, I think it's great to build motivation. I do that with young people,
Absolutely.
with adults.
We do that as a part. So certainly with, substance use treatment, we spend a lot of time on motivational interviewing. There's absolutely a place for motivation. But what we psychologists also know about motivation is a big component, a big amount of motivation comes after behavior change, because once our behaviors change, it becomes reinforcing. So getting on that slope to get started with the new behavior is what we're talking about today.
And so sometimes I'll say to kids, like, let's drop it. Like, I know you're motivated. I know you care. I know you want to get off your phone earlier at night or stop checking that thing or start your homework earlier. So that's
the wish. Yeah.
And let's drop the worry about it and discussing whether you're motivated or not or what's wrong with your self-control or whatever it is. And let's just do something to either make it easier for you to do what you want to do or make it harder for you to do the thing that you need to stop doing.
This is our takeaway from today. We're working on make it easy or make it hard. So, and that's sort of like a mantra to have in your brain. If, how can this thing I want to do, how can I make it more easy for myself? And the thing that maybe I don't want to do, how can I make that more hard? So let's sort of talk it through with an example.
Yeah.
Right?
So, I get up very early, a couple of mornings a week to walk my dog. And sometimes as the weather changes and the darkness changes and my energy changes throughout the year, that can get increasingly difficult. One of the things I've started doing is I buy pajamas that are actually real clothes and a sweatsuit, and I sleep in them. And so I sleep in my clothes so that when I get up in the morning, I don't actually have to change and get dressed. I mean, it only saves me, I don't know, like a minute and a half, 2 minutes in the morning. But there's something about rolling out of bed and I'm in my clothes that makes it much easier for me to get out the door and actually walk the dog when I need to or want to.
I think that's a brilliant example. And it reminds me of, I was sort of talking about myself. I said 4 months, I believe, but it was really like 5 years that I told myself, I'm going to work out early in the morning. I'm going to get up early in the morning because I have kids and it's too busy and I don't work out. But that was really difficult for me I wasn't getting enough sleep. I was very tired. And so it was really difficult. And I did two things. One of them similar to yours. I didn't wear my workout clothes to bed, though that's probably a good one. But I find them the night before and have them all ready in the bathroom so I can roll into the bathroom and just change. And it's all right there. Because if I have to go through my closet and find them in the morning at 5 a.m, I'm not going to do it. And the other thing I did to make it easy was commit to meeting someone else. So I just have that. I know that Brooke is waiting for me. I know that other people are waiting for me. And so then I've got my clothes. Brooke's waiting, I'm going to go, right? Whereas if the clothes weren't out and Brooke wasn't waiting, I probably wouldn't go, right? So I made it easier.
Yep.
Yeah.
When we make things easier for ourselves, they're more likely to happen.
Yep. And so let's do the other side of this, to make it hard, right?
Yeah.
So I think about that, if a teen, say, for instance, is, getting very distracted, doing their homework. This is a little bit of make it easy, make it hard. It's just how you look at it because they're on their phone, right? Move the phone and put it to the other room. Make it harder to get to that thing that's distracting you, or make it easier to focus. Whichever way you look at it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But, sometimes if I'm working with someone, say, who wants to drink less or whatever, don't have the alcohol in your home. Right? Drive a different way that isn't by the liquor store on the way home. Make it a little bit easier to not engage in the thing or to do the activity that you want to do and not engage in the activity. Make the activity harder that is the one that isn't maybe the best for you or you want to change.
I've done this with young people who, still for social reasons because their team or their acting troupe maybe has a social media account, right? So they need to have some of these accounts to access information about practices being canceled or something.
Yep.
But they'll say, once I, go on to Instagram to look at whether the practice is still happening, then I wind up looking at, 15 other things. One of the things we'll do is take some of the icons off the phone, right? So if it's so easy to just tap the button and the thing pops open and it's all there, right? If you actually have to go to a web browser and type in www.facebook.com, right? You have to take kind of an extra moment to think, do I really want to do this? Or move the icons off the front page and the home page so that you have to kind of scroll through your phone or your iPad to get to those ones and look at it. So you have kind of a moment or two to think to yourself, do I really want to open this and go down this path right now? Because sometimes, I tell kids, we just need like a little speed bump, right? Like those speed bumps, you're going 50 miles an hour and all of a sudden you got to slow down to 25 and you start to pay attention and think a little bit more. We need to put our own little speed bumps in. And I say to them, even as an adult, I do this. Like, I'll leave my phone upstairs and then go downstairs to do laundry and make dinner. So then I have to really think, do I want to go back upstairs and check my work email? Like, do I need to do that right now?
Right. And again, from a psychological perspective, this makes a lot of sense, right? Because habits really help us, and so often we just do things out of habit because it makes the day go more quickly, but then we're not as aware. So when we try to break that habit, it's, it's difficult, right? So if a teenager has a habit of, handling their afternoon in a certain way when they're in middle school, that may be fine, to go out and get some exercise and do this or that before they do their homework. That may not work anymore in high school when they have more homework and other things. So we have to change that habit, but the habit allowed us to do things, quickly or more fluidly, right? And so it's like we just have to put that speed bump in to kind of remind ourselves to change it, right? The other thing, when you were giving that example, Suzanne, of working with the teenager on the apps, and how to manage that, is teens have great ideas. So again, they have great ideas that we're not going to come up with. So just reminding us parents that we don't always have to be prescriptive with these ideas, right? So if you're listening to this podcast, it's not that we want, or we're suggesting that you go home and tell your teen, you need to make it easy and you need to make it hard. You need to make it easy to do your homework earlier and you need to make it hard for you to access your phone. No, we're not saying be so prescriptive. I actually encourage you to say, what would make that easier for you?
Yeah.
If there's a goal that your teen you can either see that they're missing or that they're acknowledging this is hard for me to get done, being curious and just asking that question, and then maybe offhandedly mentioning that you've been trying to use this own, sort of mantra in your own head, make it easy, make it hard, is just gentler and would invite more willingness, I think. Because also they just have better ideas about their lives and what might make it easier for them.
Well, I think you're right, because it's those two approaches might look very similar, but they're actually quite different, right? If your teen is bringing up a problem, or they're not bringing up a problem, but you're noticing one. You go upstairs, and every time they're supposed to be doing work, they're on their phone, right? If you go in and you say, you've got to find a way to get off your phone, I'm going to put it in another room, or you need to do this, right? Their back's going to go up, and automatically there might be some defensiveness there and kind of an unwillingness to engage in that conversation, as I think I would be if my husband, rolled over and yapped at me in that way when I was scrolling on my phone at night and should be going to sleep.
Right.
Versus maybe not a moment when they have the phone in the face, or, recognizing or kind of acknowledging to them, like, I know you've been trying to get to sleep earlier or get your work done sooner. And it can be so hard because there's so many competing things for your attention. There's so many things to keep in, what do you think is going on? One thing that I've been doing for myself is trying to just think of ways to make my life easier. Or when I want to stop something, to make it a little bit harder. Do you think there's something that you could do, or I could do, to make it a little bit easier for you to get up in the morning? To make it a little bit harder for you to forget bringing your Chromebook to school?
Yep.
What could you do? What could I do? And you're right. I am amazed every time by the ideas that kids and teenagers come up with themselves, and often not right in front of me. Sometimes we'll have this discussion. I'll offhand, like, make it easy, make it hard. That's what I'm doing. And I'll tell them what I'm up to.
Yep.
And they'll come back the next week or 2 weeks later and say to me, I thought about that, and here's this thing I tried. And it's a better idea than I would have come up with, because I don't know, what exactly every moment of their day looks like. And sometimes they have really cool ways of encouraging themselves or talking to themselves about it. I had a young person say to me a while ago, I have not forgotten it, that they try to think of how to be a good friend to their future self. And so what would future me tomorrow feel better about if I'd gone to sleep earlier? Like, how am I going to be good to future me? What would make it easy? What would make it hard? And just
I love it.
I know, just that twist on it of thinking of future you with, like, love and kindness. Like, I want to take care of Suzanne tomorrow, and Suzanne tomorrow shouldn't be on people.com till 11:30 at night reading about celebrity breakups of people she doesn't even know who they are because she's too old to know them.
Right.
Like, future Suzanne would be better tomorrow if she went to bed.
If you did something to make it hard to be on people.com late at night.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
but that's absolutely, teens just have the best idea.
And when you do that and engage them in these types of conversations, the other side benefit of this is you're really honoring and acknowledging that autonomy. And if you want to hear more about autonomy and kids individuating, making their own decisions, we had a great episode on this very early on, number 3, number 4, what is autonomy and why teens need it. You can go back and listen to that.
And great mention there, because I think what you're really talking about is helping teens think for themselves, that cognitive autonomy, right? So there's the behavioral autonomy, them doing things for themselves. But what Suzanne was just walking you through was the more that we can help our teens reflect and come to their own judgments about things, they may be better problem solvers than we are. And that really empowers them for when they are off on their own or when they spend more time with peers to be able to reflect and make decisions on their own. And not just be prescribed what to do from adults in the area.
It helps them feel it, and it also helps them develop their own problem-solving skills to think about what is getting in the way of me doing this, and what could I do to make it easier? What could I do to make it harder?
Yeah. So I do want to put a little caveat in here, because what we're talking about here, simply, it's kind of like removing friction. It's like rolling down a hill, right? Like what's the behavior we want and how can we make that more likely? And what's the behavior that we don't want and how can we make that less likely, right? And a lot of the times that is changing the environment in some way. there are times we use this strategy as clinical psychologists with a number of clinical concerns that people come in with, right? And so there are certainly times where behaviors can be riskier or more concerning, or just where you might need the help of a professional, where we are going to help as part of a larger treatment, help someone make something easier or make something harder. Like the idea that would come to mind is when, people are maybe cutting, right, or engaging in
Some sort
non-suicidal
of self-injury.
self-injury. We do work with really, how can we make it less likely that you're going to do that in terms of what do you use to do that and how can we remove those things and being really planful about that and how can we plan for what we can do instead. And that's in a broader, array of a therapeutic intervention. But really, there's make it easy, make it hard in just about every clinical intervention,
Yep.
right? That, whether we're talking about skin picking or, binge eating or, there are so many ways that we can change our behavior, but changing behavior is hard. So when we can reduce that friction, when we can work to make it a little bit easier, it actually really can lead to improvement. So if you're thinking about a problem that you think, I'm not sure how to approach this one, it might be something that, a therapist, could give you insight into.
I'm not sure how to approach this, or I'm concerned about some of the risk or
Sure.
struggles with this, that getting help and supporting you in a larger plan, which is likely going to include some of this, but
Yep.
that getting that support is really valid and warranted in many situations.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think
brings us.
I think that brings us to what now? And I think what we're talking about here is that we're shifting from this idea of like just motivation or just self-control to really design, right? Like sometimes designing your environment beats discipline.
Yep. That changing the environment is more effective than just kind of white knuckling it or relying so much on willpower.
Yeah. Let's not, sort of like wait to feel like changing or feel like changing and enact that change, but let's actually just make the change easier to do and figure out how to do that and help our teens do that too.
So
Yeah.
for fun, this week, we would love for you to think about for yourself, parents, one thing that you might want to do more of, or maybe do less of, and
Or change in your patterns.
and find a way to make it easy or make it
Make
hard.
it hard. All right. With that, we always love hearing from you. So don't hesitate to send us an email, hello@theparentingpair.com, or DM us on Instagram @theparentingpair. And what are we talking about next week, Suzanne? I think we're going to
The holidays.
yes, they're right upon us.
Yeah, they're upon us. So we're going to be talking a little bit about holiday stress and how to try to manage that for yourself and for your teen during the holiday season, and managing sometimes those tricky, larger family situations.
Great. We look forward to that.